Why so many good people are secretly drained. You've probably met people who always say the right thing. They hold doors open, smile often, drop kind affirmations, and yet something about it doesn't land. It feels performative, a bit hollow. You walk away, not necessarily feeling uplifted, but slightly unseen, because under the charm there's no presence, no substance, no rootedness. Then there are others, the rare few, who may not say much, may not try to impress, but simply being around them slows your breath. You feel steadier, calmer, as if their very way of being realigns you. These are the ones who operate from what the Tao calls higher virtue. And that's where this chapter takes us, not into performance or pretense, but into the quiet, unshakable power of true integrity. Chapter 38, Ode the Tao Te Ching. Higher virtue is not ingratiating, that is why it has virtue. Lower virtue does not forget about reward, that is why it is virtueless. Higher virtue is uncontrived, and there is no way to contrive it. Lower virtue is created, and there is a way to do it. Higher humanity is created, but there is no way to contrive it. Higher duty is done, and there is a way to do it. Higher courtesy is done, but no one responds to it, so there is forceful repetition. Therefore, virtue comes after loss of the way, humanity comes after loss of virtue, duty comes after loss of humanity, courtesy comes after loss of duty. Manners mean loyalty, and trust are thin, and disarray is beginning. Foresight is a flower of the way, and the beginning of ignorance too. Therefore, great people dwell in the thick, not the thin. They abide in the substance, not the flower, so they leave the latter and take the former. This chapter is like an archaeological dig through the collapse of character. The deeper we go into appearance and performance, the further we drift from our real center. Let's take this apart and rebuild it through a mindset lens. A student once traveled to find a Taoist sage known for his wisdom. After climbing a mountain for 2 days, he finally reached the sage's hut. The student bowed and said, "Master, please teach me the way to peace, to balance, to virtue." The sage looked at him and smiled, but said nothing. The student waited, then asked again. Still the sage was silent. After an awkward hour, the student exploded in frustration. "What kind of master are you? I came all this way for your teachings." The sage replied gently, "And I've given them to you. You just weren't quiet enough to receive them." The student lowered his head and sat in silence. And it was then, and only then, that the real learning began. The danger of living in the thin, Lao Tzu gives us a ladder in reverse. The way is the source, pure, effortless alignment. When we lose that, we reach for virtue, but even that can become a performance. Then humanity, duty, propriety, each step a little more external, more forced, more disconnected. Let's make this real. When you feel deeply aligned, you don't need to try to be good. You are good. When you're misaligned, you try to appear good, to seek approval, to manage perception. This is the beginning of exhaustion, the root of burnout, because you're living in what Lao Tzu calls the thin. Thin living is when you rely on image over substance, when your kindness is strategic, when your service expects applause. We live in a world obsessed with image, selfies, likes, sound bites, but the Tao whispers, real power isn't in being seen, it's in being whole. Returning to the thick, Lao Tzu says the wise dwell in the thick, not the thin. What does that mean? The thick is your internal ground, the quiet center that doesn't need confirmation. It's what athletes call being in the zone. It's what meditators call presence. It's what children experience before they learn to compare. In the thick, you act without overthinking. You serve without expecting. You create without performing. You love without managing image. Virtue is not something you show. It's something you are. Here's a mindset shift. Stop trying to be virtuous. Start living aligned. When you return to the thick, you don't fake humility. You embody it. You don't need reward. You are the reward. You don't seek applause. You generate peace. The mindset trap of lower virtue. Lower virtue is transactional. It's, I'll help you. so I feel good about myself. It's still based on ego, on separation. This mindset often leads to martyrdom, overgiving, then resenting, exhaustion, needing to be the good one, attachment, to being seen as kind, wise, spiritual, and the trap is you think this is virtue, but it's a polished prison. Higher virtue is water, it flows. Lower virtue is ice, it tries to hold its shape. This is why in the Yielding Warrior method, we don't teach you to act spiritual. We guide you to feel alignment. That's the reset. Action item, the daily check-in. Here's a practice to keep you in the thick. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did I do anything today just to be seen as good? If yes, don't shame yourself, just notice it. Then ask, what would I have done differently if I were acting from presence instead of perception? This simple shift brings you back to the way, not instantly, but over time it rewires your system to act from your center, not your mask. True mastery is unseen. One of the most powerful lines in this verse is, higher virtue does not ingratiate, that's why it has virtue. Let that soak in. Real power doesn't try to be liked. This is true in health. You don't need to prove you eat clean, you just do. Business. You don't need to flaunt your success, you serve with clarity. Relationships. You don't need to perform love, you are love. Uncontrived effort is the sign of alignment. When you're in the Tao, you become a magnet. Not because you chase attention, but because your energy is deeply resonant. People feel it, they don't know why, but they lean in. The modern application. So how do we live this in 2025? This world rewards noise, flash, performance. So living by higher virtue is countercultural, but that's the gift. You don't need to shout your message. Just embody it. You don't need to advertise your healing. Just radiate it. You don't need to curate your kindness. Just act from it. The Yielding Warrior doesn't need an audience. He just moves, grounded, aligned, clear, and from that space, everything follows. The No Praise Day, here's a challenge. Go one full day doing kind things without telling anyone. Pay a bill for someone anonymously. Clean up a space without praise. Send a kind message without signing your name. Why? Because when you release the need for reward, your virtue becomes real. You stop living in the thin and return to the thick. A return to simplicity. This entire chapter is about returning. Returning from performance to presence, from image to essence, from noise to silence. Virtue is not a ladder you climb, it's the ground you return to. You don't need more self-help, you need more self-awareness. You don't need another mask, you need to remove the ones you've outgrown. You don't need to be better, you need to be still, because in stillness, the Tao moves. One final reflection. When you stop trying to be good, you become whole. When you stop trying to be spiritual, you become real. When you stop managing your image, you become free. This is the paradox of higher virtue. The less you try, the more you become. Thank you for being part of our community. If this lesson stirred something in you, share it, but don't just share the link, share the energy. Be someone who walks in alignment, who lives in the thick, who offers without announcement. And if you haven't already, subscribe, like this video, and drop a comment below. I choose substance over show. Let's start a wave of positive energy.